heck is gerrymandering?
Gerrymandering is essentially when one political party is given advantage over the other due to the manipulation of district lines. In other words, district lines can be drawn and redrawn to include or exclude certain groups of voters in order to cement the majority vote in each district in favor of one particular party. This is a practice that actually rigs real elections and has a lasting impact on who our representatives are and who they're going to be.
Gerrymandering has a history in the U.S. that traces all the way back to 1812 in Massachusetts. All because a man named Elbridge Gerry accepted a bill that would make it easier for sitting politicians to stay in power. This bill essentially allowed the redrawing of district lines.
When gerrymandering, there are two principles that are used called cracking and packing. Cracking is when you are diluting the voting power of the opposing party's supporters across many different districts. Packing is when you concentrate on the opposing party's voting power in one district to reduce their voting power in other districts.
Packing and cracking look something like this.
When measuring the trends of gerrymandering, we use the method of compactness, and the two formulas that we run tests on are the Polsey-Popper method and the Reork method, which give us the numbers and the data needed in order to determine whether gerrymandering occurred or not.
The efficiency gap is when you are looking at the difference between the two parties' wasted votes divided by the total number of votes. It helps to observe large imbalances of the voting. So why is this important, you might ask? How and where the districts are drawn can shape a community's ability to elect the representatives of their choice, as population districts have to be equal so that communities have equal access to political representation.
One clear example of gerrymandering is in the 12th District in North Carolina. The 12th District in North Carolina was redistricted after the 1990 census. It was a long oblong shape that was shaped like the highway of I-85. It included cities such as Charlotte, Greensboro, Winston-Salem, and High Point. This section of I-85 was mostly comprised of historically minority and poorer communities. This piece of redistricting was taken to the local courts and eventually made its way to the Supreme Court, where it was the case Shaw versus Reno. Courts ruled this district unconstitutional because its bounds were so bizarre that they could not, quote, be unexplained by reasons other than race. And racial gerrymandering was banned since the Voting Rights Act and the Equal Rights Act of 1964 and 1965. But in terms of mathematical presentations that we've seen in class, was this district actually gerrymandered? First, we can look at basics of cracking and packing. First of all, the cracking was not used here because obviously this is such a weirdly shaped district that one group was not cracked into different groups. However, packing probably was used because of the oddly long shape, and the only similarity between the communities that were chosen was that of minority and poor communities. If we use the measurements that we've used in class, for example, the Reork measurement, we can see that the area divided by the shape of the closest circle would show that it is only a 0.357 Reork measure, which is not close to 1, which means that this district is not compact at all. We can also use the Polsey-Popper test to see if this is a compact district. So using this equation, we find that the measurement is 0.0735. So it is not at all compact compared to either measurement that we've used in class to see if a district is gerrymandered. And because of this and the clear evidence of packing this district, we can see that the 12th District in North Carolina is gerrymandered.
The 2010 consensus completely changed the use of gerrymandering as we once knew it to be true. The apportionment of state representatives throughout the years following the 2010 consensus have reflected the Republican Party flooding out the Democrats, which is an obvious sign of mischievous use. Some of the Supreme Court cases that have been filed within the last 10 years include Rucho versus Common Cause, which was dismissed due to the lack of jurisdiction of the Supreme Court, but filed on the basis of the infringement of the First and 14th Amendment. Gill versus Whitford, which was based on the discernment of malicious intent of partisan advantages in the redistricting of the Wisconsin map, and Alabama Legislative Caucus versus Alabama, based on the infringement of the Voting Rights Act of 1965.
The consequences of gerrymandering go deeper than election wins and losses. Gerrymandering increases gridlock and disenfranchises voters. Voters should be picking their officials and not the other way around. People need to know that their voices are being heard and that those who represent them will implement policies and changes that will help them and not hurt them. Some politicians have begun making active efforts to end the practice of gerrymandering. In most states, politicians are the ones in control of the redistricting process. This is called partisan gerrymandering. It perpetuates the practice and, again, essentially hurts our democracy. But this is starting to change in some states. California is one state that has made progress in ending and preventing gerrymandering. Around 2010, California began using committees made up of citizens to do the job of redistricting, hoping that it would be done more fairly than if politicians kept doing it. The goal was to lessen the extreme partisanship that gerrymandering was perpetuating due to letting politicians exercise so much self-interest. While it has been a somewhat successful venture, the work is hard and it is more of a patchwork solution to a larger problem. Still, California is a model to other states in this department. If you want to know more about gerrymandering, there's a ton of resources out there. Here's a video by Vox that focuses on districting in North Carolina. It's called The Man Who Rigged America's Election Maps. This is an online gerrymandering game you can play that walks you through the process and shows you a simplified version of what gerrymandering can look like. The page also includes some awesome resources at the end. Here's another video by Vox about some people who are using the power of a supercomputer to find a way to assist courts in detecting gerrymandering in the future.
We want to end our video by encouraging all of you to not let gerrymandering discourage you from exercising your right to vote.
Even though it can feel exhausting and frustrating to learn about such practices and how they are used to undermine our democracy,
we encourage you all to take what you have hopefully learned here today and be part of good change. Use your voices and stay vigilant.
Hope that made sense, everybody. Thanks. Bye.